Ladies and gentlemen from around the world, welcome to the first 2023 Soggy Sports Mock Draft. Now, as everyone knows around the world, these are one of the most prestigious mock draft programs in the entire world and videos you will ever see. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Now, I do want to preface to say these are not my power rankings of the players, but more kind of what I think the teams need and what the teams are going to want in this draft. So I'm not saying that if I have the fourth overall guy, that's the fourth best player, but I think it might fit the fourth team. You know, that type of thing. So just keep that in mind and don't try to witch hunt me if I have your favorite player a little bit lower than one might want. So please sit back, enjoy the video, and without further ado, without remembering too much, let's get right into this video. And to get this mock draft started, we're going to go with the Detroit Pistons with the number 1 overall pick, and that is going to be Victor Big Daddy Wembanyama himself. I don't think I have to explain this. His size, his length, everything about him is insane. He has extreme skill for a 7'5" guy. He shouldn't be able to do what he does, but he does it anyway. He's shooting one-footed 3-point fadeaway shots, falling down, making them over other professional basketball players overseas right now. The kid's insane. He's a freak. I don't think I have to explain why they're picking Wembanyama here. Detroit, you're getting probably a superstar unless he gets injured, like a lot of 7-foot-plus guys do get injured, but hopefully Wembanyama hasn't showed that yet, so hopefully that doesn't happen to y'all, and y'all can now have a superstar level player to pair with Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey going into the future. And now with the number 2 overall pick, we have the Charlotte Hornets selecting Scooty Boy himself. Now, the reason I have them selecting Scoot is because he is an extreme athlete, and really and honestly, in almost any other draft, unfortunately for him, he would probably be the number 1 overall pick. He's insanely good, insanely good at what he does, which is scoring. Now, yes, he needs probably a little bit of work on the defensive end, and he needs a little bit of work on the passing the ball end, but unfortunately for him, Charlotte has a guy named LaMelo Ball, who's actually a very willing and good passer, and I think that they could fit together and they could make it work if LaMelo is willing to maybe take a little bit less on the scoring role and take on more of a playmaking for his teammates type role. Now, yes, he can still go get a bucket when he wants and when he needs to, but I think he would probably have to be second fiddle to Scoot Henderson for it to really work out. But Charlotte, anytime they try to do something that's not a for sure thing, it really just does not work out for them. So I would say that they probably should go with Scoot because he's almost guaranteed to be a star in the league. I'm looking at you, James Booknight, Cody Zeller. Y'all just are horrible. Why did they pick you? I don't know. Please, Charlotte, don't mess this up and pick Scoot Henderson. And now for the 3rd overall pick, we have the Orlando Mickey Mouse Magic selecting one half of the Thompson twins, and it is going to be Ausar Thompson. Now, hold up. I know a lot of you were probably thinking you were going to hear the word Amen Thompson come out of my mouth, but let me explain why I have Ausar Thompson here and not Amen Thompson. One, obviously they're twins. They have the exact same build, and they're both equally as athletic each other. That's just what happens when you're twins. But in my opinion, Ausar Thompson has been a much better 3-point shooter, and that's not even opinion, that's just a fact so far this year in the Overtime Elite League. He's also been a much better defender while being just almost as good of a passer as his brother as well. So I really don't understand the argument of Amen over Ausar Thompson right now, as Ausar has just been outplaying him by a good bit through the first few games in the Overtime Elite League. Now, yes, that could possibly maybe change going forward, but right now I do think Ausar is the better half of the twins, and yet, like I said, it could change, but right now I do think Ausar is just a little bit better than his brother Amen Thompson. And now going to the 4th overall, we have the absolute NBA daycare of a team due to how young they are, the Houston Rockets. And the Houston Rockets, I have them selecting Cam Whitmore. Now, Cam Whitmore, I think, would fit perfectly with their currently big two that they kind of have going with Jabari Smith and Jalen Green, because hear me out, Jalen Green in a few years probably be one of the best offensive players in the entire NBA. He's already one of the better ones right now, and Jabari Smith is starting to pick it up a little bit after a slow start, and he kind of just does a little bit of everything. He's a very solid defender, he can pass the ball well, he can also score when he needs to and slides your throat as well due to his length, and he's able to have a little bit of a mid-range game. He can just do a little bit of everything. While Cam Whitmore isn't the best offensive polish player, yes, he can get to the basket really well and kind of plays like a Zion type guy. Now, I'm not comparing him to Zion, but he kind of plays the same offensive game as Zion. He can shoot the 3 when he absolutely has to, and if you leave him wide open, he can. But as far as like contested 3s, he isn't going to be able to do much of that. But where he makes his money is the defensive end, because he has very good defensive instincts, and I think could be one of the better big threes in the future if they would stick together with Houston, because I think they all bring something different to the table. Jalen Green brings swag and just being able to do anything he wants on the offensive end. Jabari Smith is a swift army knife that can do literally anything, and Cam Whitmore could be a defensive stopper and just the energy guy, athletic, who can also get you around 10 to 15 points per game any night you want him as well. So I think Houston would be getting a very nice fit and a very good player going into the future, and they would be one of the more fun teams to watch going forward. But now going to the 5th overall pick, we have the library of basketball teams, which is the San Antonio Spurs. And the reason I said that, just they're a boring team. When the most exciting thing about your team is that your 19-year-old point guard showed his penis to a female worker at your organization, that shows you how boring of an organization you are. Even when you were winning, you're just not fun to watch, man. Like, they're just not. And this San Antonio Spurs are one of my favorite teams, weirdly enough, but they're just not. They're boring. And I think Nick Smith Jr., who I have them picking 6 overall, would be almost a perfect pick for the San Antonio Spurs. Nick Smith Jr. can go out and get a bucket whenever he wants. He's one of the better offensive players in this entire draft so far. He can make tough shots. He can score from all 3 levels of the floor. And I honestly think a big 3 of Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and himself would be very good. Devin Vassell is probably one of the most underrated two-way players in the league. He gets you 20 points per game while being a very good defender. Keldon Johnson also gets you 20 points per game at a power forward, and almost no one talks about Keldon Johnson, which is weird. And if you add Nick Smith to that, another potential 20-point per game scorer, now you could be cooking with something. And then you also have Jakob Poeltl, one of the better centers in the league. He's very okay. I think you could have a very interesting team going forward, and I do think Greg Popovich would be able to develop all of them to work very well together and could potentially be very, very solid going into the future. And now with the 6th overall pick, we have the Washington Kyle Kuzma selecting the second half of the Thompson twin brothers, being Amen Thompson. Now, Amen Thompson, although I'm not as high on him as most people are, he still has an extremely high ceiling. His athleticism is insane. He is a very good passer. You have to pick him in the top 6, and especially if you're Washington, you need some excitement injected into this roster, and that is exactly what Amen can do. He's going to dunk on a few people. He's going to have some crazy highlight plays, and if he does hit his potential, he is going to be a very, very fun and good player to watch going into the future. And I just think for sure, if he just gets a little bit more work done and his shot gets a little bit more polished, he could be an extremely big problem for anyone to guard. And you put someone that has that high of potential with Bradley Beal, and then maybe even if you keep Kyle Kuzma around, you could have a interesting team, and probably the most exciting Washington Wizards team we've seen since the John Wall prime days, honestly. And it would be very fun to see if Amen Thompson can develop alongside Bill, maybe benefit Bill from being loyal to the Wizards, even though he kind of said in a podcast the only reason he was loyal was because no one else wanted him, which is kind of sad, but still, that's a different video for a different day. But Amen Thompson, I do think, would be a fairly good fit for the Washington Wizards, and he has such high potential, you have to pick him, I think, this right here, if you are the Wizards. And now with the 7th overall pick, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder, which is basically just a team built of Sam Presti's children, meaning that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, boom, traded for him. He's now an MVP level player. Josh Giddey drafted him, Chet Holmgren drafted him, and I have them selecting Brandon Miller. And the reason I have the Oklahoma City selecting Brandon Miller is because I think he would fit almost perfectly with what they currently have. Brandon Miller is a very lengthy, versatile player, could be an elite two-way player in the future, and right now already can get you about 20 points per game and be a very, very good defensive player due to his length and athleticism. And I think for sure that a big four of Josh Giddey, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Brandon Miller, and Chet Holmgren in the future would be one of the funnest teams to watch in the NBA. Now, although Brandon Miller probably would have to be the third fiddle on offense due to how good Shai is, and Chet's the last year's number 2 overall pick, they're probably going to prioritize him on offense. I still think Brandon Miller could serve a very good purpose of being a third option who probably won't have that much pressure on him and can get you about 10 points per game while playing very, very good defense and rebounding the ball due to his athleticism and his length, all while being passed to by Josh Giddey, one of the smartest guards in the entire league. I think that team could be very, very fun, and overall, I think Brandon Miller would just fit this team perfectly, and I think Sam Presti would be adding another child for him to develop going into the future. And now for the the 8th overall pick, we have the Orlando Mickey Mouse Magic once again selecting Anthony Black. Now, the reason I have them selecting Anthony Black, because you have to have in mind this is their second lottery pick, and they already picked Azur Thompson. Now, Anthony Black, in my opinion, is pretty much a Josh Giddey 2.0, and which is so interesting about Anthony Black is he is a 6'8 guard, kind of like Giddey, a very, very big guard who can basically do everything. Now, like I said, he's more athletic than Josh Giddey, and is why I call him Josh Giddey 2.0, and his weight probably has a little bit higher of a ceiling due to his offensive game, because he has shown flashes in college of being able to go out and get you 20 to 30 points any game he wants, and he has a little bit of shot creating potential. Now, it does need to be polished up, and he does need a little bit more work on offense, but he is still a very smart player. He's a very big guard, and he's just a very interesting player. And I think if you have a 6'8 point guard to go along with Paolo, Azur Thompson, Wendell Carter Jr., and Bol Bol, that would be one of the funnest teams in the NBA. I don't think you can argue that, and going into the future, no telling how good that team could be if they all develop on the same path that you expect them to develop on. And now, for the 9th overall pick, I have my New Orleans Pelicans, aka #1 team in the Western Conference. Stop playing with us, aka the Phoenix Suns daddies. I'm gonna stop playing because we're probably gonna lose the next 5 games and Zion's probably gonna get injured, so I'm gonna stop talking shit. But the New Orleans Pelicans, I have them selecting Gregory Jackson. I think he is a very Pelicans-esque pick, meaning I think he is a very athletic and very defensive first-minded guy with offensive upside, and that kind of reflects some of their draft decisions. Look at Jose Alvarado. He was a defensive first guy, and they got him undrafted. Herb Jones, defensive first guy, good length, good athleticism, and they developed his offense later. Dyson Daniels, same exact thing, and I think Gregory Jackson fits that mold just as well, and honestly, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Dyson's looked very solid. We know how good Herb Jones is, and we know how good Jose Alvarado has been. So I think if it's not broke, don't fix it, and Gregory Jackson would kind of fit the mold perfectly of defense first, athletic, lengthy guy that you want on your team, and you can develop his offense a little bit later on, and I think that is just exactly what Gregory Jackson would be. And now going to the next pick, we have the Miami Heat selecting Cason Wallace. Now, Miami is in a very weird spot. You have white boy Tyler Hero, who although is putting up numbers, the Miami Heat are significantly better when he comes off the bench, and then you have Jimmy Butler, who's pretty much putting the entire team on his back, while Bam Adebayo is having a weird season. He's still a very good center, but he's just having a very weird season, kind of wasting away at the 5. Kyle Lowry should be in a retirement home, and that is exactly why I have them selecting Cason Wallace, because Cason Wallace is, although not a great scorer, he pretty much does everything else you want your guard to do. He plays defense, rebounds, passes the ball, is very smart with the ball, doesn't turn it over a lot, and just basically does anything and everything you want your guard to do, and he would help a lot moving on from a guy like Kyle Lowry, who have been in rumors of either letting him go when his contract is done or trying to trade him as well. So I do think Cason Wallace would be a great pick here for Miami, and I do think he would fit in with that culture that they have spent years making right now. And now for pick number 11, we have the Toronto Canadian Dinosaurs selecting Maxwell Lewis out of Pepperdine University. Now, a lot of mainstream media really hasn't picked up on Maxwell Lewis, but he has been one of the best scorers in the entire draft so far. He's a absolute bucket at Pepperdine. He's very versatile. He's like 6'7" as well and can play the guard position, and is just an absolute beast when he comes, and I think for sure his versatility is going to be great with Toronto. And when you put on top that Scottie Barnes has been pretty tragic in his second sophomore year, especially on the offensive end, which I expected going in. He actually had a crazy rookie year, and I was not expecting that, and this is kind of more what I was expecting, him being a very solid defender still, and a hustle guy, but not the best scorer. And I think putting someone like Maxwell Lewis, who can just go out and get a bucket anytime he needs to from any part of the court, I think would benefit Scottie Barnes a ton, and I just think for sure he would fit very well, because now you'd have Fred VanVleet and Maxwell Lewis, two very good scorers, OG Anunoby and Scottie Barnes, two very good defenders, and then you have Pascal Siakam, very, very underrated player, by the way, extremely underrated. He's a very good defender, even though he's undersized at the center position, and he's just overall a very good player that not enough people talk about, and I just think Maxwell Lewis would be a great fit and great addition for this Toronto Raptors team. And now for the 12th overall pick, we have the Utah Please Give New Orleans Their Damn Name Back Jazz selecting Keyonte George. Now, Keyonte George is kind of a run-of-the-mill guard. He's going to be solid. He can score the ball. He's okay. I don't think he's going to be anything special. I think he's going to be okay and average. And I do think Keyonte George is going to be a decent pick here for the Utah Jazz. He can pass the ball. He can score the ball. He's just solid. I don't think he will be anything great, but he is going to be solid for sure. And then with back-to-back picks, the Utah Jazz will be picking once again, and this time I have them picking a wing in Jett Howard. And now Jett Howard is a versatile wing scorer. He does have high potential. I don't think he's going to be great because he doesn't have that great athleticism. He doesn't have great length, but he is smart. He can shoot the ball well, and I do think he could be a solid scorer off of the bench, or maybe even a starting level scorer as well. And Utah should be getting two very solid pieces that will make them better going into the future. And then with the final pick in the lottery, somehow we have the Golden State Warriors. If the Warriors are here when this happens, I would be shocked, but they're here, okay? Somehow the defending champions are picking in the lottery right now, and I have them selecting Grady Dick. Now, although he has probably the best name in the entire draft, I don't think he is the 13th best player in this draft, or 14th best player, my bad, I can't count, but I do think he would fit this Golden State Warriors roster almost perfectly, as he's probably the best three-point shooter in the entire class. He has great length, he has very high offensive upside, and he can just really do everything the Warriors would ask him. He can dribble a little bit, he can go to the rim a little bit, he can do a little bit of everything, but he makes his money with the shooting, and I think as he develops and as he gets more comfortable in the system of the Warriors, he would just fit almost perfectly, and I think the Warriors would be getting a huge addition with Grady Dick to the roster. I just love saying his name. I mean, imagine Grady Dick for 3 being said on TNT. That would just be a great thing, and we have to see that. I honestly hope he goes to a big market team, so he's on national TV, and I have to hear announcers say, Grady Dick is going off. But enough of me being childish. That is it for this 2023 mock draft. If you did like being pointed like button, subscribe button would mean the absolute word to me, and I hope you did have a blessed day, because I have a blessed day, so you need to have a blessed day. All glory to God. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Blah.